Well, about the contents. Well, first, I'm going to talk about the context, right? The socio-political situation of the Silesian peasants in the 1850s. Then I'll tell you who Leopold Mochegemba was and his influence, which was crucial. And then I'll move on and tell you a bit about this mutual influence between Texas and Silesia and Texas, or Poland and Texas. How, on the one hand, these Texans are still upholding, Silesian Texans are still upholding Catholic Silesian or Polish traditions. And, well, on the other hand, when the influence of Panna Maria on the Silesian or Polish artistic output. Okay, I would like to, well, I'd like to start providing a general, let's say, historical and geographical context, where I believe it's paramount to visualize the settings and, well, understand this link between Poland and Texas. Well, to start, let's say from the beginning, in a very few words, I'd like to talk about the state of Poland again. Sorry about it. So from the Middle Ages, once Roman Catholicism introduced in 966, Polish state grew in power to become one of the most influential countries in Europe in the 15th and 16th centuries. However, due to the central government structure weakened by greedy noblemen and the very restricted power of the King of Poland in the 18th century, well, the three powerful neighbors, Prussia, Russia, and Austria, began to slice off pieces of the Polish state for themselves. And so after three partitions, Poland practically ceased to exist. Marek has mentioned that as well. So Upper Silesia, which is the region in question, was not part of these partitions, although they influenced its history. At that point, Upper Silesia was already under Prussian rule, for the area had been acquired by Frederick the Great of Prussia in 1742. And here, well, I've got some maps. So you can see, well, this is the situation in the 19th century. So there's no Poland, Prussia, Russia, and Austria. Upper Silesia is somewhere between Breslau and Krakow, but in Prussia. Then here, this is, well, today's map of Poland and all these neighboring countries. So with red is marked the region in question, Upper Silesia, right next to the Czech Republic. And here, well, you can see all these really little villages in Upper Silesia, the homeland for these immigrants, these settlers I'm gonna talk about. So in spite of, as we've said, staying under Prussian rule, the Silesians managed to keep alive the Polish language, or rather its Silesian dialect, the Polish traditions, and the Catholic religion. Regarding the situation in those times, well, in the first decade of the 19th century, there was a Prussian land reform in Upper Silesia, a royal edict ending serfdom. As a result, the peasants had to pay for their personal freedom with a much more difficult economic situation. Moreover, food prices increased greatly in the 1850s due to bad harvests and the Crimean War. On top of all that, a natural disaster, the great flood of the river Oder, and terrible epidemics of typhus and cholera, which infected the region in those decades, added to the, well, hopeless misery of the Silesian peasants. Eventually, a factor of social discrimination felt by Poles in a German-dominated society was crucial too, when considering the condition of Upper Silesia in the mid-19th century. Taking all the aforementioned into account, Reverend or Father Leopold Mochegemba's success in encouraging his family and friends to come to Texas, well, comes as no surprise. Now, who was he? Who was Leopold Mochegemba? Well, he was a key figure in the Polish or Silesian migration to Texas. He was born in Późnica, one of these little villages I've just shown you. And after having studied in several Catholic schools, he became a conventual Franciscan friar and was ordained a priest. A few years later, while living in Bavaria, he was recruited by Bishop Odin of Texas to serve German immigrant communities in America and Texas. After having served for 2 years in New Braunfels between San Antonio and Austin, he was moved to Castroville, about 25 miles west of San Antonio. Now, obviously, being aware of the extreme poverty and social problems in Upper Silesia, and observing the economic and social advancement of his immigrant parishioners, the German ones, parishioners on the Texas frontier, Leopold Mochegemba, Father Leopold, began writing letters to his family and friends, encouraging them to come to Texas. His letters, in which he was telling them about the freedom and opportunities for better life, well, were received with perhaps more enthusiasm than he had expected. For in the winter of 1854-55, several hundred Polish peasants from his home region sailed to Texas. Now, according to the historical records available today, in Charles Ryan's words, in late September of 1854, a group of Upper Silesian peasants sailed aboard the wooden ship Weser, arriving to Galveston, Texas, about 2 months later. A few succumbed during the voyage, as did a few others in Galveston, since they arrived during a yellow fever outbreak. Within the week, a second ship, the Antoinette, arrived with the remainder of their group, bringing a total number to somewhere between 700 and 800 people. After a second short voyage to Indianola, they rented Mexican-owned ox carts for their belongings, then proceeded to walk to San Antonio. Meeting Father Mochegemba in San Antonio, they walked on to Panna Maria, arriving on December 24, 1854. A midnight mass was celebrated under an oak tree. Many of the settlers dug holes in the ground for temporary shelters. Malaria hit. Most of the immigrants left for other nearby existing communities. Those who stayed built a church and a small farming community, despite ensuing difficulties with drought, starvation, cold weather, malaria, scorpions, rattlesnakes, and religious and ethnic persecutions. Many blamed these new sufferings and misfortunes directly upon Mochegemba and began to plot against him. It was at this time that Mochegemba hastily departed. So as we've just mentioned, most of the immigrants settled at a place prepared by the priest near the confluence of the San Antonio River and Cibolo Creek in newly organized Karnes country. Mochegemba named the site Panna Maria, Polish for Virgin Mary. Other Silesians settled in the already, as I've said, existing communities at Bandera and San Antonio. For the next 3 years, Polish peasants continued coming to Texas and settling primarily in the areas already occupied by their countrymen. Improved economic conditions in Upper Silesia, combined with the start of a severe drought in Texas, ended the movement by 1856-57. Conditions became so harsh, in fact, that the Poles, in anger, as I've said, forced Mochegemba to leave Panna Maria entirely. Well, the settlers somehow directed their frustration toward Mochegemba, whose life was threatened, though there was, disagreement as to whether he should be hanged or drowned. Interestingly, during the 100 years that followed its founding, the founding of Panna Maria was a mother colony for at least 16 other Silesian Polish settlements in Texas. Now, Charleston Ryan, in his thought-provoking article From Fact to Myth, A Story of Panna Maria, when talking about mythologizing some of the factual occurrences of the founding of the settlement, points out in particular the post-treatment of Father Leopold Mochegemba. Through time, he was raised from the status of a rather despised person to that of a venerable priest. Notably, Mochegemba's new image was more solidly embedded in the minds of Polish Americans in 1974 when they watched his remains, which had been exhumated from a Detroit gravesite, were reinterred beneath the famous oak by the church in Panna, an event which was followed by Polish Catholics nationwide. He was formally acclaimed as the Patriarch of Polish Immigrants, and in the following year as the Patriarch of American Polonia, and in the nation's bicentennial year as the father of Polish immigration to the USA. Now again, for you to place the village, well, the town of Panna Maria in the United States, and then in Texas, this is where you can find it. Okay. Now, obviously, the influence of Silesia or Poland, the influence of the traditions those settlers brought from their homeland on these new Polish American communities and on today's Texas is indisputable. However, it's particularly gripping to observe the way the Poles converted their history into myth of origin, and to realize that some historical facts, well, had been transformed into mythic elements. Now, let's move to the topic of the cultural heritage. Now, the clearest example of how the Silesian or Polish roots are preserved in Panna Maria is the Heritage Center. All right, the Heritage Center in Panna Maria, set up by Bishop Emeritus John W. Janta, a descendant of those first settlers, established in the Polish Heritage Center Foundation in 2011. His vision was to have a heritage center that would recognize the trials and triumphs experienced by his ancestors, and as an American Polonia treasure to, and this is what they put on their webpage, to instill pride and knowledge of our Polish heritage, ancestors, and culture for this and future generations. Well, construction began in 2016 and it's finished now and functioning, so you can visit it. Okay, now apart from this institutional preservation of the cultural heritage, seemingly personal effort is put in keeping the memory, traditions, and the language alive. We can see this on the example of some recorded testimonies, such as those which are part of the exhibition Książce Texasy wczoraj i dziś, which, well, we could translate as Silesian Texans yesterday and today. An exhibition which was first presented in 2014 and since then has been exhibited in many institutions, churches of Poland, and even in the Polish Senate. And, well, let's listen to one of the descendants of those first settlers. This woman, interestingly, speaks this, let's say, Silesian, the 19th century Silesian. All right, so just a few seconds, okay.
Hi everyone.
Oh, she starts in English.
Yo jest Dorka. Yo jest Dorota. I am Dorothy Pawelek. Ja się urodziła w Teksasie. Moi ojcowie byli Aleksander Polok i Anna Moczygamba Polok. Oni mieli 7 dzieci, a ja była ta najmłodsza.
All right, so she actually one of her ancestors was Moczygamba as well, all right? Furthermore, we can observe the Silesian Texas and their descendants in an interesting documentary directed by Dagmara Drzazga and released in 2020, Pokolenia or Generations. The film addresses such questions as who these descendants feel they are, or how they feel about their Silesian roots, or if they can still speak some Silesian or Polish. The main character and at the same time the guide of Texas for the TV crew is Reverend Franciszek Kurzaj, or Father Frank, who for more than 3 decades has been the most engaged activist for the cause of maintaining the link between Silesian Texans and their ancestors' homeland. Let's see, just a few seconds.
Oni nie mówią tak dobrze po polsku jak Josce.
Takim głównym sprawcą tego wyjazdu był ksiądz Leopold Moczygęba. Fajnie się nazywał.
This is Father Frank.
And they were singing Christmas songs in Texas in 1854.
Potomkowie Ślązaków w Teksasie.
Of Panna Maria, you know, among the Texans there. Now, in terms of literature, there have been numerous non-fiction books published on, exploring the story of Panna Maria and the first years of struggling in the settlement. Okay, there are history books, collections of diaries, letters, etc. However, regarding fiction in English, I've only come across this novel for children, actually, written by Rita Kerr, a very interesting figure. Passed away a few years ago, a retired teacher from Texas, author of over 20 children's books, all somehow linked to Texas history. Now, with reference to Polish fiction, to fiction in Polish or Silesian, these two novels are based on the story of Panna Maria, starting from the hardships the Silesians were undergoing in their homeland, through the exhausting journey, ending with the misery and hope in their new land. The one from 2010, Silesians on the Wild East, and then this one from just published just last year, There Where It Doesn't Rain, a ballad on Silesian Texans. Interestingly, this one dialogues are written in Silesian, but there is a dictionary for Polish readers who don't understand this dialect. Okay. Now, in terms of performing arts, it's noteworthy that 7 years ago, a Silesian theater in Katowice. Katowice is today's capital of Upper Silesia. Okay. A play was premiered titled Western. That's how they want audience to pronounce it, Western. Somehow based on Panna Maria. For the first act is set there, precisely in the 19th century, but the second act seems more like a science fiction piece. So this hybridity. Okay. And now, finally, it's impossible not to mention. I would like to mention a worldwide known phenomenon among amateur enthusiasts, the so-called Silesian Westerns or Kiełbasa Westerns. Kiełbasa in Polish is, Polish sausage, kiełbasa, and you'll see why kiełbasa is so crucial in all these films, okay? Made by amateur filmmaker Józef Quick. Quick has never attended any professional film trainings, and the only, in Szymkowska-Bartyzel words, the only filmmaking education that he received was from watching Hollywood movies, especially Westerns. For he was fascinated by this genre, the Western format. Józef Quick comes from Bojszowy, a small village located in Upper Silesia. The inspiration for his movies appeared after Quick had read a book by Professor Andrzej Brożek on the history of Silesian immigrants to America. And so Quick directed his camera at the Silesians, among whom there were, gunslingers, sheriffs, priests, and beautiful women. Both the internal relations of the Silesian immigrants and how they interacted with other inhabitants of Texas became the subject of these movies. And now I would like to show you some scenes. The most representative and I would say really funny. These extras come from the latest movie by Quick, The Silesian Sheriff, from 2016. By the way, he himself is being cast in this role. He is the Silesian Sheriff, okay? And just one more thing. In terms of gender, Silesia was, I don't know if it still is, but it was like the Basque country. And so some matriarchal features may be observed, all right? So watch and have fun. These are the bad guys, the Mexicans, okay? Kiełbasa, the Polish sausage. Yeah. Strong women. Silesian women were really strong women, okay? You can hear the Silesian music, soundtrack, okay? And the settings, well, this is the village, this is Bolshove. Okay. And why not a bit of civil war as well, okay? Everything's there, basically, in this film. There's everything. Now here, well, this is Józef Quick, right? The director, the creator, and the main character here. And, well, what's happening here, you can, well, I've told you that, well, Catholicism was very, and still is, very important for this community. And so you'll see it's a special kind of Catholicism, okay? They all go to the Sunday Mass, of course. Religious songs. They're all amateurs. All these actors are just inhabitants of this village, of the Bolshove village. Okay. Again, the bad guys are coming. Look at the priest. Okay, the hero. And now finally, well, there are some Indians as well. Okay, why not? And here, well, the whole Indian village has just been slaughtered by the Yankees. Only one Indian girl survived, and so they comment on it. And well, the sheriff, by saying that it is a very, he says that, well, it is a very cruel land, and well, that they should have stayed in Silesia, their homeland, their idealized homeland, instead of following this Father Leopold Moczygęba to this horrible Texas land. Okay.
Patrzcie, Jankesi po wygranej wojnie robią porządek z dzikimi. Co z nią zrobić?
Nie godaj tak przed nią.
Kali. Ona i tak nie rozumie.
Witajcie. Słyszałeś, no to Indianery wszystkie wybite.
Każmy sam przyciągnij do tego dzikiego kraju.
Trzeba było siedzieć z życią w doma, a nie smykać się po świecie.
Jak ten stary ujek, ksiądz Moczygęba, namówił nas cofnąć się z naszego Śląska w tako suchara, w tym tekście.
From our dear Silesia to this cruel, horrible land. And then, well, a nostalgic song in Polish. And well, I'd like to finish with, well, a personal touch, let's say. There's a theme park in one of the Upper Silesian towns, Żory. It is called Twin Pigs. Twin Pigs. Okay, yeah, Twin Pigs, yeah. The theme, obviously, is the Wild West, all right? So here you can see some pictures. twin pigs. Yeah. And well, this is me. I was there just a few weeks ago for the second time. I've been there twice already because my kids love it. That's why, I guess I'm going to be there every summer. And so, yeah, interesting. Okay, these are the works I cited, I've quoted. And well, thank you so much for your attention.
Well, thank you, Maja, for bringing and unveiling us this new West and illustrating it with such fun videos too. Thank you.